NCTD's role. So just to get a little inside baseball for you, Toll Brothers Apartment Living is processing the application. So you'll see members of that team and myself really as the boots on the ground. But we meet regularly with NCTD. They're very much in the fold. And so it really is a collaborative partnership. So we're all in this. My role on the team is community engagement. So any questions I receive, all the feedback goes back to the project team, and we look for opportunities to really weave that in. How do we make changes? What makes sense? Really balancing all of the comments that we get from the various stakeholders. As you may have heard, that from a state level, regional, local, there's all these different initiatives on how to encourage transit-oriented development. And so really balancing those efforts with what we hear at the local level and kind of marrying them together so that the project can be as good as it can be. So your participation and your feedback is super important. I do have our goals up here. I know it's a bit of an eye chart, so I'm not going to make you read it, or I won't read it to you either. They're all posted on our website. But to Jane's comment about the general plan, one of the primary goals that we're looking at is how do we position the Oceanside Transit Center to really meet today's needs, but also future needs too. So the general plan, I went to the meeting last night as well. There's a huge focus on transit and multimodal transportation and how people get around. Is it walking, biking, reducing that reliance on vehicles? So that's a big focus of ours as well. So just kind of synopsisizing all the goals that are up there, really aligning with where Oceanside sees itself going the next 10, 15, 20 years, and really improving the efficiency of NCTD's operations. Okay, my clicker's not working, so there we go. So this is a basic overview of the process. We are very early. We're just on that fourth box. It started in 2020 with the request for proposals. So there were a handful of developers who submitted draft concepts to NCTD. There was a panel of community members as well as NCT board members who reviewed those and ultimately selected Toll Brothers Apartment Living. The team has been working with the city and NCTD, kind of put a little meat on the bones. And now here we are. That next step is starting our community outreach. So we just submitted our first application. We still are waiting on city comments. It is a very iterative process. So the next go around will incorporate more of those community feedbacks. And again, like I mentioned, just looking for opportunities to tweak it, refine it, and make sure that we can address as many community comments as we can. Phase 2 is largely the environmental review. So California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, is really what that environmental review process looks at. It reviews things like traffic, air quality, noise, aesthetics, water, all of those things that are really important to people, and provides the technical foundation. So if we need to mitigate for anything or further refine the project through that process, that comes too. The environmental document will be available for public review. We have not kicked that off yet, so there's still lots of time not only to engage with me, members of our team, but also through the formal CEQA process too. So lots of bites at the apple there. When the EIR, or Environmental Impact Report, is available for public review, you all and the community at large will have the opportunity to submit formal comments on anything we may have missed or anything that you want us to look a little closer at. And then those responses to those questions and comments will be in the final document. So lots of technical detail, but I think it's important to know the process and what those opportunities are for you all to get engaged and really impact change too. The final phase is public hearings. So once the EIR is finalized, we'll let everybody know, and then we'll go to the Oceanside Planning Commission, followed by City Council, followed by California Coastal Commission. So the whole process, we won't be at public hearings until late 2023. If we're successful in those efforts, construction would be anticipated for like mid-2024 to get started. Just to give you a little context, there are actually 2 project sites that are part of our overall application. So the main one that people are talking the most about is the Oceanside Transit Center site on Tremont. The secondary one is over here off of Mission. So you can see 810 Mission Drive, or Mission Avenue. That is the location of the current NCTD headquarter building. So they have opted to move their headquarters to the OTC over on Tremont to really consolidate their operations. What that's done is opened up the Mission site to be available for more housing. So I'll start with Tremont because that's where the most stuff is happening, and then I'll finish up with Mission, and then I can take questions at the end. Okay. So really understanding the context was very important to the design team, figuring it, we're right on the edge of downtown, downtown, and then the adjacent residential areas. So how do we create this transition period, either architecturally or in the uses, just looking into how we tie into things. They were really inspired by Oceanside's history, the surrounding architecture, just the general lifestyle around here. So I won't spend too much time on that, but it is something that is really important in guiding what we've designed and what we're proposing. Okay, so here's the Tremont site plan. If you have not already, our website is ocidetransit.com, and you can download the site plan, you can zoom in. I know it can be a little tricky to see it in this way, but that's a good resource. You can also join our email list on that website, and you can submit comments. All those comments come directly to me. So we're going to go through each of the pieces one by one, but if you can see oh my God, you guys, I didn't turn it on before, that's why it wasn't working. Okay, you can see right here, this white building is a hotel. The NCTD new office will be right here. This is going to be a new parking garage, and I'll go into all of this in more detail as well, but just trying to orient you. This is Seagaze right here. So as you're coming out of downtown, down Cleveland, this parking garage is the existing city parking garage. That will stay. We've heard gotten a lot of questions or just more background information about the cleanliness of that parking garage and just some of the challenges that people have with using it. It's technically outside of the purview of the project, but I have been sharing those comments with the city and with NCTD nonetheless, just so that as we're looking at the project holistically, you can try to identify what solutions there might be as well. These two buildings are the residential uses. This is a large station plaza. These are where the new bus terminals are. And we'll get into some of the feedback we've heard about that as well. And then in the center here is the new transit center. So again, I'll go through everything in bigger detail, but it's nice to see the aerial of it so you can kind of orient yourself. Okay. The first piece as you're coming down Cleveland is the hotel. It's 165 rooms above retail. So along the street frontage, there'll be different shops, neighborhood serving services. We don't have the hotel operator or the tenant list solidified yet. So what I've heard from a lot of people is different requests for, grocery store or different types of shops or less coffee shops or more of this, less of this. So any of that feedback is really important as well. So as we look to the future, we can kind of figure out what that tenant mix looks like. One thing we heard at our open house meeting last month was just this question about it being, straight up and down, just a wall of building. So I had this exhibit prepared. It wasn't showed at our open house, but I think it demonstrates what we're trying to do really well. As you can see on the bottom, it kind of steps up. So a lot of the buildings are designed to create open space opportunities throughout. So there's rooftop decks. As you can see here, this is the hotel specifically, but this design treatment is also on the NCTD headquarter building and also in some of the residential spaces too. So you create kind of this separation from the street and make it breathe a little better. So there's This top area right here is a rooftop bar and restaurant. And then this wall right here is for public art. We have met with the Arts Commission, so we're talking with local folks on how to incorporate public art so that this place becomes somewhere that you want to go, not somewhere that you have to go, but that you feel safe and comfortable and excited to walk through it. This is the view of the new transit center from the train tracks. So if you're on the train tracks, which I don't recommend standing on the train tracks, but if you're out there looking east, this is what you'd see. These shade structures are the waiting area, and they kind of lead into that plaza. So again, you can sort of see how the building is designed to step back. Can you guys hear me when I don't want to put my back to you? So it kind of steps back and creates outdoor spaces and more opportunity for green screening. One of the things that we also heard, I'll try to share what feedback we've heard so far, just so you know how we're being responsive, but some of the feedback we heard at our open house was that people wanted to see more opportunities for additional open spaces, so more landscaping, less hardscaping, but balancing that with places where people can come, maybe have community events, gather, get together. So we are looking for opportunities to integrate more green space, but again, finding that balance with open plaza space too. This is kind of a side view. If you're standing on the new extension of Cleveland, to the west or to the left right here, you can see that plaza space. And then to the right, you can see the extension of additional retail. Have this nice paved walkway so that there will be some cars on that area, but again, it's more focused on the pedestrian. Right here, where that little arrow is the new transit center. So I have heard people questioning why the decision to put it there. It should be right in the center of everything, maybe in the plaza. We did opt to have it as part of one of the residential buildings, so that not only is it one of the first things you see as you enter from, so Tremont's up here, as you enter Tremont, it's right there and available to you. But also it encourages the residents to use the transit as well. So a lot of times, increasing ridership comes in how do you make it more convenient for people. So if you're living here, the idea is that you could use transit regularly, often, and that is right there in the center. The other benefit of this area is that currently ticketing for trains and buses is separated. So if you're not from this area or you're not used to taking transit, it's difficult to navigate. So really centralizing it in one spot will make it easier for people to know where they're going and then get directions to where they need to be. One thing that is not on these exhibits yet, but still in process, is what that wayfinding and signage will look like. So making sure that people can easily get around either by foot or by bike or in their car if that's what they choose to do. Rideshare, just looking at all those different ways that people either access the site or travel around Oceanside. What kind of signage do we need? How do we need to mark the street so that it's safe and comfortable for everybody? That is not on here yet, but it will be soon.
Yeah, can we ask questions as we go?
Why not? Yeah, what's your name?
Renee.
Hi, Renee.
So do you see the transit center being manned, or is it going to be all machines and signage?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I will find out though for you, Renee. Give me 1 second. Actually, let's hold it to the end, because then I can write down questions.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just be taking notes like a secretary. Okay, a good question. I will find out though. Okay, and then that's just another view of the front of that new transit center. There has been some criticism that that transit center is too tucked away, too hidden, and so I hope that this vantage point shows you that it is pretty front and center. There's a lot of glass there, so it'll be really clear for people walking around. They can see in, it feels very inviting, very welcoming, where there may or may not be people in. This is the view from the end of Cleveland looking in. have received feedback that we don't love the location of the new bus station, so I'm looking into what the rationale is there and why NCTD thinks that that would improve operations, but bear with me. The buildings are designed in a lot of places to allow for, you see here, they kind of overhang, and so you have car travel can go, or bus travel can go underneath. You have sort of stair-stepped uses, so it creates these very dynamic interactions with things. It just makes it more exciting, more lively, but also really maximizes the space. So there's not a whole lot of wasted space. It's all very intentional, very efficient. Okay. Parking and circulation has been a big one. I know this is really important to people. I will caveat this with our traffic study is not done yet. So this is preliminary, just to start getting everybody kind of wrapping our arms around what the circulation patterns will be. But there'll be more detail here. So any feedback you have about circulation is obviously very welcome. So there's no net loss of parking. I know that that's a big question that's floating around. So all of the surface parking that's out there will be replaced in that new parking structure that I shared with you that's on the Tremont side. And then there'll also be additional parking for the other uses as well, including 2 levels of underground parking. So just really looking to maximize the space, make it as efficient as possible without losing anything. Yeah.
What do you think, what percentage of the development has the underground parking?
Oh, it's I don't know the percentages, but it's that primary residential building in the very center where the transit center is, has 2 levels of underground parking.
And then where are the bus bays?
Oh, I'll show you. We'll get there. Like teeing me up perfectly. So the way this was designed is there's parking in each of these 4 blocks. So each use has its own dedicated parking, although it's not reserved parking. So you, as the public, you could park pretty much anywhere. There will be reserved parking for NCTD staff, so they can, make it to work on time and stuff like that. And there'll be reserved parking, some reserved parking for residents. But there's parking in each of these buildings. And the benefit of that is that it really does separate out, it disperses the traffic throughout the site. So if you're NCTD, for example, and you're going to work, you're not going to drive all the way down here. You might come in this entrance, or if you're a hotel, you might come in this entrance. If you're a resident, you get the point. But it disperses everyone throughout the site so that you're not forced to have everyone going the same way. I did include the parking in each one. So in block 1A, there are 170 parking spots in the hotel block. 1B, which is right here, there's 630. Block 2, there's 480. Block 3, there's 500. And that does not include the existing parking in this parking structure owned by the city. This is a preliminary circulation graphic. The blue dots are the different garage entries. So as I was saying, you can kind of see how the different uses might be dispersed through through the surface streets. Again, this does not include bike and pedestrian circulation. I had a lot of conversations with some of the cyclists in the community and just the importance of minimizing conflicts with cars. This industry is evolving so quickly with the way that rideshare is changing, the way that e-bikes are becoming more affordable, more attainable. So looking at what do our bike lane or our bike racks look like? Is it standard racks? Do we need to have docking stations? Really talking through with NCTD operationally what they think those needs will be, and being able to be nimble so that the site and the transit center can evolve as things change as well. So, bike infrastructure to come is the big takeaway there. This right here is the underground tunnel that is staying. I don't think that was completely clear in the last meeting that we had. So it's not going anywhere. We're not changing it at all, just designed around it. Okay, this is an eye chart. I will not ask you to read this. I'll just synopsisize it. So it is mixed income housing, and what that means is there'll be market rate and affordable housing at both sites.
What's affordable housing?
Like what the rent would be or who qualifies. So I don't know what the rent will be. That's not determined yet. However, in order to qualify, it's based on income levels. So the median income level in San Diego County is set by HUD, by the state. And they give those numbers out. And then, so for example, a family of 4 would be considered low income if they're making $104,000 a year. They would qualify for this housing. And then it goes based on the size of your household, number of people who live with you, and your income. Does that make sense? Kind of? Okay. So for this project, 75% of the homes will be for low income. So that's this category right here. So $104,000 for a family of 4. And 5% or 38 of them will be for moderate income. And moderate would be $128,000 for a family of 4. So it's rare to have this many affordable units. A lot of developers opt to pay the in-lieu fee. We're really proud of the fact that we're building those units on site as part of the project. For those of you who don't know, the in-lieu fee is just a fee. You give money to the city, and those units are built wherever, and then the project itself is just market rate. From a social equity perspective, I think it's really important to have those integrated within the project. They look the same as the others. People just have to qualify with the city in order to get those restricted units. Yeah.
You've got a chart that shows acutely low all the way up to moderate income.
Sure. Yeah.
But the units are only for low income.
Yeah. So.
And you're showing low income as $73,000 for one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was mentioning. Sorry, my back was to you. It's based on the household size. So the example I was giving was a family of 4, but you're absolutely right. For a single person, that would be about $72,900.
There's no units for very low or extremely low or acutely low. There's just from low or whoever qualifies with that income.
Correct. Yep. So we're just doing low and moderate. I included the whole table because I think affordable housing can be really emotional for people, and so I like to include the whole table instead of removing pieces. So you can find this table online. It's all the different income levels. We are just doing low and moderate though. Make sense?
Do you know where those names came from? Moderate income, low income, extremely low income? Those seem wrong to me.
Oh, well that is way above my pay grade. So the California Department of Housing
Is that right?
sets that, yeah. So if you go to hcd.ca.gov, you can read all about the income levels and how those are determined. It's all based on your area median income. San Diego County is more affluent, so our area median income is higher than what you might see in other counties. So it really is just very specific to the region that you're in. And these numbers apply to all of San Diego County.
I don't know if those are really representative of Oceanside, though, specifically.
They're just it's the state requirements, that's just how it,
Right.
yeah.
It doesn't look like there's any provision for somebody that's on Social Security. They're going to be pretty hard pressed to come up with $100,000.
Yeah.
Of an annual income, yeah. So this particular,
They're not like thrown by the wayside. That's what it is. That doesn't sound very good. I think that ought to be looked into.
of changing the affordable housing breakdown that we're offering.
Yeah. I mean, what does a person on Social Security earn? Or not necessarily earn, but
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What's the reason you don't include median income? Like, so if I fell in the middle, then I wouldn't qualify. If I wasn't low and I wasn't moderate, then I wouldn't qualify for any of the affordable housing.
You would, because you're in that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the
if
median
everything
is
under low would qualify for low?
anything.
Anyone that's making less than low income would qualify for low income housing? Is that what you're saying? Because those are really small ranges.
Sure. So the minimum would be 72,000. I don't know how so the affordable housing and who's chosen to be able to live in those affordable units is managed by the city. We don't actually, we just build them. So I don't know, I don't know, some cities have a lottery program. It just depends on the local jurisdiction of how they allocate those. There is usually a rigorous application process, so people have to submit their income, they have to be able to prove that they can pay the rent. There is a formula that goes along with affordable housing that helps identify how much your rent would be. So it's, this is a gross oversimplification, but it's basically that your rent can't be more than 30% of your income. So it's kind of a sliding scale based on what you make. Okay, and we are providing more than what's required. Okay. And then lastly, this is the Mission Avenue site. So you can see the site plan up here. It's much more simple than the Tremont site. It's just housing on this site. And then there's 206 units, 15% again are the affordable.
So Arlene, if you go back,
Yeah.
the
Which one?
last slide.
The
Just so
affordable
people-
housing one?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
just the one before you're there. So on the left side of that building is the B of A. We're looking at Mission going northeast, right?
This is Pure View at Nevada.
Oh, okay.
So we're like this corner right here.
Okay.
So I think B of A, oh gosh, I think it's one of these. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're talking about right now or right in the future?
Right now, there's a B of A there.
on Mission,
Why did it look like B of A there? Since that picture.
Well, right now, it just looks like a white box. I think this is the, oh my goodness, it's escaping me. The health center, yes, Vista Community Clinic, thank you, is this one right here. If that helps orient you.
well, doesn't that street say Mission? I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah, this is Mission.
Okay, so then if you would take your red pointer
Yeah.
and go right there, where what just was, that's the B of A right there. So no, over to, yeah, right there.
Where's the high school?
That's the
High
parking
school would
area.
be up beyond the picture.
To the right,
No, up north,
to the
to
right.
the top, to the right, yeah. Right there, yeah.
In other words, across from the Walmart shopping center?
Yeah, which is off the screen. Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, so, there's we think that there are a lot of benefits associated with this project. As I mentioned, we're still very early in the process, and so your feedback and your questions and your concerns are really important, so we can see what changes are able to be made. Some of those benefits is that it does help Oceanside get closer to its state mandated housing allocation, including affordable housing. We do exceed that goal, or we do exceed what's required of us. We are improving the efficiency and accessibility between the different transit uses. I know that there are some questions about, you had asked where the bus bays are. Wait, was that, or was she left?
Yeah.
Okay, so the bus bays are in this area right here. So I have gotten questions about why move the bus turnaround to the Cleveland side versus the Seagate side. So that's something that I'm looking into, as well as other opportunities for green screening and improving the connectivity between the existing community too. And then lastly, just really being able to activate Cleveland, make this a welcoming place to go. If you don't ride transit currently, there's not a whole lot of reason why you would go to the OTC. So making it be inviting, be seen as a community enhancement too. So with that, I will take your questions. As I mentioned, there are some that I might not have the answers to yet. If there are operations that haven't been determined or technical studies that haven't been completed yet, but I will definitely go suss it out and get back to you when I do have the answers. So,
Who's
yes.
the architect?
Oh, the architect is CKRTL. They are based in LA.
And how are you connected with them?
I am the community outreach manager.
Community.
Community outreach. who will talk to me, and then bringing all of that feedback to the project team and saying, hey, we had questions about this, we heard concerns about this, why was this decision made, we need to look into this, and kind of going from there and seeing what changes can be made. We won't be able to change everything, but finding those opportunities to find compromise and make refinements where we can is really important.
Please,
Yeah.
raise your hand so that, don't not just call out.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay. We'll start with you in the back and then kind of work our way forward.
Okay, I'm Kurt.
Hi, Kurt.
Right now, the coaster platform is actually far south of this particular building site. And in order to get on the coaster, I have to walk all the way to the center of the site, this site,
Mm-hmm.
and then walk all the way back, almost a full block,
Okay.
to where the train parks.
Okay.
Okay? So far, I've not seen on any of your diagrams an easy access to track 3, which is the coaster track,
Mm-hmm.
from the south end of your site. And as a local resident, and now that we have, your e-tickets, pronto tickets, there's no reason for me to go into the center of the site at all to get ticketed. So it'd be much more convenient for me to walk into the south end of your site, only cross the sprinter track and get onto the coaster train.
Okay. That's okay.
That was actually my question.
Okay.
Yeah, so I live just right here, and I've had, I have friends down in Encinitas or Solana, and I'd love to just hop on the train instead of taking the car, and I did it once, and he's right, you can walk like 15 minutes, get down there, just to go around the fence, walk all the way back down, more than halfway to get on the train.
You in the corner? Yeah.
All in this rendering, all these buildings look very much alike.
Mm-hmm.
Could you use your red dot pointer and tell us which building is which?
Exactly.
Sure.
And another thing is, we don't know what the train track comes down there. It would be nice to say something about this is a train track and this is where the parking is, or, I don't know what that blue vehicle is there, what is that for?
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna start on the north end of the site. So this is Seagaze right here.
What streets there then?
Seagaze?
Seagate.
Seagaze?
So, Seagate.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the hotel. This is an extension of Cleveland right here. Okay. So this is the hotel. Here is the existing parking structure. This is the proposed North County Transit District headquarter building. This is a parking structure as well. This U is residential. The transit station center ticket area is right here in the center. This is residential right here. This box is kind of covering, but this is Station Plaza in here. These are all waiting areas. These are bus bays along here, so bus loading. And, oh, this blue building that you asked about is an operations building for NCTD, basically for bus drivers.
So getting on the coaster is not appearing in this picture. And the Amtrak train, which boards on track 2, where's that? Behind that blue thing?
Yeah.
It's very confusing to tell what's boarding where.
Okay, I can get an exhibit made that shows where all the tracks are and how people will access them. And then if there are opportunities, like you mentioned, you have to walk around a big gate. If there are opportunities to enhance that, that would come from the NCTD operations team, so I can ask them about that.
It's like Wisconsin and Tremont. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we see that you're very familiar with it, but we're sitting here trying to figure out what's on what that picture takes in.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I find it interesting that you would have all the buses go in front of all these residences. Like, that seems to me not necessarily, an attraction for residents, right? And then, so I'm questioning the logic of that. I understand the efficiency of having it go under and all this, but at the same time, we're talking about, exhaust and noise and, you know, the people that live by the train right now are ready to, you know, shoot themselves. Right? The other thing is, Cleveland, will it not go through to Seagaze? Or is there something by the Oceanside parking lot and office building that actually goes through to Seagaze?
This will go through.
It does go through?
It will go through to Seagaze. It won't be full through, this is, Missouri. It won't be full through to Missouri.
So it won't go through, there won't be any buses through Missouri?
Potentially buses, but not, it won't be a straight cut through from downtown to Missouri. For vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third one is, there's a lot of articulation, meaning different levels and all this on the west side that face the track and probably the ocean. But what does it look like on the other side that faces our neighborhood?
Good question.
Is it just like a solid wall? Because we have some,
Yeah.
based on efficiency, some designs that people are going in, and they look like hospital buildings. Not even good hospital buildings.
Ugly hospital.
The Soviet bloc buildings?
Yes, Soviet block buildings, yes.
Okay.
And it's like, who approved this?
The city.
But the last question I have,
Yes.
because I'm on the arts and cultural, committee,
Oh, great. Okay.
and, you know, the transit district has been part of why Oceanside even is here.
Mm-hmm.
So it really seems essential that the history of that is incorporated into it. Even if there's even like a small museum of how Oceanside grew because the train came through.
Do you think, are you suggesting, that's an interesting idea, are you suggesting doing that through the incorporation of art? So, because you mentioned you're in the arts and culture.
Arts, open space,
Yeah.
it should be everywhere, whether it's a nod to some kind of, you know, architecture of a mission here and there, you know, just, it should, you know, it's one of the main reasons Oceanside is even Oceanside, you know.
Well, just
why-
the role that transit had in having
I mean,
become what
literally,
it
like
is.
back in, you know, 200 years ago,
Yeah.
it was a little thing, and they called it Oceanside because the farmers would go to the ocean and they call it
Yeah.
Oceanside. But then when the train came through, then other people, tourism and all this other stuff. So we're talking like 200 years.
Yeah.
So it really should have more emphasis on how it's impacted our city.
Okay.
I would like to see.
Yeah. I would love to have you and the Arts and Culture Committee give more input on maybe what that could look like. We have identified several locations where we think the public art could be really meaningful and be, you know, an interesting focal point. And so I think having a historical element to that could be really, really cool. So
Yeah, it's even like, you know, some of the underpasses that you're talking about could
Yeah.
be archways, not, you know, George Jetson futuristic stuff, you know?
yeah.
Which would incorporate some of the themes, you know? I don't know, I can have an offline with you, but.
Sure.
But again, it's just how will it look for us, the neighborhood and the rest of the downtown? Because it looks pretty good from the, you know, train tracks, but who's on the train tracks?
No, I hear you, and that I missed including that rendering, so I will put it on the website, and then if I'm happy to send it to you, and you can share it with your group, or if there's anyone who wants to join our email list, I'm happy to send whatever materials we have. Yes, Kevin.
Can you go back to the last slide that shows where the bus station will be? So I assume what will happen with the queuing there is that they would come in and then go around, and so that's the reason we have to have circles. So many of them would go out, what is that, Michigan?
Michigan.
So they come in Michigan and go out Michigan with a few of them going down. What's the street that has the country road there at the end by
Missouri.
Missouri,
This is Missouri.
yeah, Missouri. So one of the ideas I talked to, when I first found out about this plan, I sat down with Matt and Tracy at the
Yeah.
TTE. And for me, I would think the queuing of the buses could be turned around and actually be at an angle on Michigan. So kind of a T to the track, which would take away, as you said, that view in front of all of those residences, the buses in front of them. It would also block the sound by the blocking of the buildings that might be there from the residential that might be around it. The residential, and I found with residents when they move into a building, they're used to what's there, but when it changes, you move like cheese, right?
Yeah.
So if that transit bus center is in the middle of the project, separating the two residential projects, it's gonna be an existing concern when those residents move in. There's not gonna be an issue. It also solves the blight issue that might be there, and the queuing issue, they can go out to the street as they currently do.
It's a good suggestion. Okay, yeah.
Well, I have a question, and it's about the affordable housing.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you have the information, but the state mandates each city to provide a certain percentage of affordable
Correct.
housing.
Mhm.
So what percentage is the affordable housing providing for the city? Do you know?
Of the total requirement?
Yes.
Oh,
That
that's
we've
a
been
good
working,
one.
because, yeah.
So I know that Oceanside is required to do roughly 5,000 new homes between 2021 to 2029. I don't know off the top of my head what the affordable housing breakdown is. I have it in my office, but if you want, I can send it to you. You can dig it up and send it over.
Well, if you want, you can put all this in an email and I can blast it out.
Perfect.
And then I have a comment too.
In 1 second.
What was your comment?
Oh, well, I love the transit aspect, that piece, but it seems to be buried by a huge development. Like, we already have the 2 hotels downtown, and I know we worked on getting those reduced in height and things like that. But now we have a hotel and a lot of residences all in one area. It almost reminds me of public housing if you were to go over Chicago or something, the way that it is.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why, it's such a huge project that way rather than, it seems like they're saying this is a great transit project and then behind it is really for a huge development in this one little area too, which is, if you look behind,
Mhm.
it's small homes and small residences. So
Yeah.
basically it's more of a comment.
Sure.
I don't know if it's all set in stone already, or if it's because we're supposed to be providing all this housing now, that they're saying, okay, let's build housing all in one area.
Yeah, so it's not, I wouldn't call it greed. So in 2016, NCTD voted or decided on a new policy to start leveraging their real estate assets. So they're gonna start looking around the county on how do you get people coming to transit? How do you increase the convenience, increase the connectivity, make these spaces that are underutilized? How do you revitalize them, get people coming to them? How do you make them teed up for future success? And a big part of that is doing mixed-use development so that you have this hub of activity around transit and it becomes part of the lifestyle, not just, oh yeah, that's the train station, but it really does become an easy thing where you come outside, you go visit a friend in Encinitas, or you go to a Padre game, or it becomes a part of how we live. You don't start thinking about transit that way unless you are around it, you see it, you're comfortable with it, and right now people just don't go to the transit stations.
We don't really have a convenient schedule. It's like every hour, maybe, every
Yeah.
other hour when we're going. So, and they've only just recently added the late night hours back from downtown, which I'm shocked that they don't do later hours back
too, where people wanna go, when they wanna go.
Mhm.
And they're not say, oh, well, nobody's riding it, so we gotta cut back.
Right.
And that goes with buses too.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Feels like a kind of chicken and egg
Yeah.
situation where you weren't writing it, so they cut back, but they had more options and people would write it, so, yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I had one more thing, you touched on greenery just a little bit, but also this goes ahead with aesthetics, and then also, sound reduction, including greenery, more incorporated in the actual design of the building even, like how you see a lot of times in Asia, but like growing on the sides, rooftop greenery, that helps reduce noise, it helps with the emissions of the buses and the trains that are right there. And it provides greenery and open spaces for people to congregate. Oceanside doesn't do parks well. I'm not sure that there's any parks at all in
There
like
is.
the downtown area.
Oh, in the
Well,
downtown, no.
Yeah,
No. Well, there's like Tyson Street Park, down
okay,
there.
yeah, well, yeah, beach and stuff. But, other, like, Encinitas, there's parks everywhere
Yeah.
with play areas and
Mhm.
dogs can be off leash. Also, if the residents have pets, where do they take their dog to just go to the bathroom and then come back inside?
Good. Okay. So we are looking at, the landscaping plan is still in process. Like I said, we're really early, which is, it makes these exhibits a little gray and sad, but also a great opportunity to start incorporating that feedback. So we heard that at the open house too. So our landscape architect is currently looking at opportunities to incorporate more green, not only for noise attenuation, but also for just beautification in general. And then with that will come the landscaping palette, so specific, not only where that green area will go, but also what plant materials will be incorporated in there. So, like Jane said, I'm happy to come back, and as we have more information, or bring other members of the team with me, et cetera, and really just keep the dialogue going.
Do you know if they're planning on tearing down all the trees that are there currently? Because
I would imagine yes,
it would
but
be nice if there were ways for them to maintain some of the trees that aren't interfering with the residential buildings. There is a lot of history in Oceanside, there's a lot of amazing giant trees.
That are 200 years old.
Yeah, so it'd be
How do
really,
you- What do you replace that?
yeah, it'd be really sad to see those just like torn down, especially around there, there's some really big trees by the transit center.
Yeah, it cuts down on noise too.
Yep. That's a good idea. I'm gonna come over here to these ladies and then I'll come back to you. Okay, in the front.
So parking is always an issue with anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And I know you gave us numbers of a lot of the parking places that they're gonna have. Could you tell more of like the ratio of parking spaces to rental units?
Each unit gets, oh God.
Because I know they kind of, if it's near a transit center, they seem to think no one's gonna have a car if they live near a transit center. And that's just not realistic.
I believe each unit has 1.5 spots. So, based on the size of the unit, you know, that kind of determines how many people would be living there and then how many cars there would be. You?
And that was kind of my question, is the amount of traffic it's going to cause with all those extra cars there.
Mhm.
Because Pacific now is really not a joy to drive down sometimes, but the traffic that's, and even going up Mission or whatever, how is that all gonna work?
And they keep talking about maybe PCH one lane. I mean, one lane
Post-highway,
each direction.
post-highway. Yeah,
Post-highway.
well, it'll pulse in and out, that's the idea, to slow down some of the traffic, but
It's slow now.
It's already slow now.
Yes.
it's in the coastal commission.
Okay.
We live there.
Go ahead. We have time for maybe one or two more questions.
And if you guys reach out, I'm happy to grab a coffee and talk about all of this stuff. And like I said, bring whoever we want to talk to. To your point, I don't want to let this get away. Our traffic study's in process, and so that'll identify, or it'll evaluate local road segments as well as local intersections during the scoping meeting. So the scoping meeting is the kickoff for the environmental review process. It's a really good opportunity to say specifically, you know, we have road segments and intersections that the traffic engineer has identified, but if you're like, look at this one specifically, the scoping meeting is a really great opportunity to, is a really good opportunity to give that feedback, and then it'll be analyzed as part of the environmental report.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you have any idea if the number of bus routes departing will remain the same, or will that be affected?
I have not heard if they're changing their the scheduling. I don't know.
I have a quick question.
Say that again.
So it might stay the same, or?
I assume that it's staying the same. I mean, there's 12 bus bays, and then there's, right here. So I showed you where the bus bays are in this area over here. There's also bus, loading, queuing right here by this, parking lot too. So I don't anticipate that changing, but I can find out what MCV's future scheduling looks like and, how that works with this project.
Okay.
One last question. Oh,
Sorry, you,
go ahead.
Yes.
There's a lot of parking spaces down here right now. What's going to, now, the public parking is going to take care of the parking spaces that are going to be wiped out. And building that, and there's a lot of cars in that already. There's a lot, is that going to take care of for everybody?
Yeah, so there's no net loss of parking, and then they added additional parking to cover the new uses. Yeah.
You do a lot of design on this, and that's fine, but these projects tend to favor people with money. Your rental levels seem for people with money. And I'm not against people with money, but it's nice to include everybody as well.
Yeah.
And the retail, I'm sure, is gonna be high-end, and so it's gonna be expensive to rent a space. I would encourage you in some way to help people who need a starting point. You know, whether that's carts on the shopping center, which I think we need now in the transit center. Somebody was selling lemonades or hot dogs or something, that people who are riding a bus would appreciate it. Just something else going on downstairs besides having to walk into a restaurant, sit down and spend that money.
Yeah.
And those people having to commit to so much money every month to even be in business, to make some way for these supposedly low-income people who are living there to also make a living, maybe, or somebody else in the community
Sure.
to make some money.
So are you saying like food carts to be available, like
Or
food
some
trucks,
space.
like pop-up retail,
Or
stuff
some
like
lower
that?
income retail spaces, or, I'm open to whatever you think is the best idea, but we're not really serving the downtown Oceanside area by doing this exactly. We're leaving out a big population that couldn't afford to live here, couldn't afford to have a business here, couldn't afford to participate here. So. And yet they might be riding the transit, so.
Arlene, my question is about the in and out on Michigan. Is that gonna be at least currently planned, the main in and out for all the buses? Or is it still
No.
gonna be Seagate?
So this is the draft, so they could come in Seagays, that's the primary entrance. So right now, the primary entrance is Seagays to Cleveland, and then they can come here, they can go out Missouri or out Michigan.
Because Seagate right now is much more, commercial, you know, or they just have, because it's part of the downtown. When you get down to Michigan and Missouri, it's much more residential.
Yeah.
So right now, they're not affected by it, because they go in and out of Seagates, and that would be preferred, rather than to disrupt the residences and the people walking and with this additional traffic.
You gotta put in lights.
Lights
You
and
gotta
all
put
that
in
other
lights
stuff.
where they're-
Yeah. And the downtown coast highway plan, there's an idea of putting a roundabout at Michigan. So how are you gonna have all these buses going around the roundabout? You know, it can't. So it's better to just keep it up on Seagate.
Okay. Buses can traverse roundabouts, but I hear you.
You know what I
So,
mean?
Yeah.
It's not a huge intersection.
Right, right.
I think we better get you on the plan.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so I think we're kind of run out of time, but we ran a little late, so.
That's okay. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Arlene. Love the dialogue and the questions, and I'll work on getting answers to stuff that I didn't have yet, and I can get that over to Jane. If you have not joined our email list, I'd encourage you to do that. We're still pulling through all of the comments from the open house last month. I've organized everything, got it to the right people, and the design folks and engineers and whatnot are figuring out what they can do. So I really appreciate your time and your feedback, and I will see you again.
Do you have contact info?
Just